Everybody, are we ready to begin? Please help me get everyone's attention. I do apologize for rushing you, but we are getting started off with a time crunch as it is, so it's my responsibility to make sure that we keep as close to the schedule as we can. With that, good morning. Welcome to our live audience as well as to our online audience. My name is Joy Marks. I'm the moderator for our session this morning as well as this afternoon. All of you should already have information about the evaluations. If you need an FM system to listen to the interpretations, headsets are available on the table to my left, so please make your way over there to get those headsets if you need them. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker of the morning, Campbell McDermott. Welcome.
Oh, it's working. Wonderful. Good morning, everybody. First, I want to thank Gallaudet University for hosting this conference. It's a very exciting conference. It's a chance for us to come together and share our research and what we've been doing in the field of interpretation. So it's wonderful. I've been looking forward to it for at least a month. You know, kind of like a dog with my tail wagging. I just couldn't wait to come to Washington, D.C. I hope that you are similarly excited and that you will feel that you've benefited from coming today. What I'm going to ask you to do is actually hold your questions to the end, because we will have a little time for Q&A at the end. And you can stay where you are seated to ask your questions, and we will have an interpreter take care of the shadowing for that. So I'm here to talk to you about cohesion. Cohesion is not a new topic. It has been studied before, and many of the studies have focused on translation or a mix of ASL signing and PSE signing. That's what the studies have done. I really just wanted to look at American Sign Language in a vacuum. And so my study involved 12 interpreters, 5 expert experienced interpreters, and 7 novice interpreters. I had them listen to an English text and perform an interpretation with American Sign Language as their target language goal. And we talked about the text, the spoken text or the signed text, and I use a particular lexical item for that in sign language. What I wanted to understand was how interpreters created cohesion within a text, and I had to choose a model for understanding that, and I chose the model offered by Halliday and Hassan. And their model suggests 2 levels of cohesion in a text. One is coherence, which is the whole text tying together, and then cohesion, which ties together each aspect of the text. If I'm going too fast, let me know. I'll slow down. So coherence includes certain terms you've heard of. Rhetorical style or register, whether it's formal or informal, what its goal is of the text, if it's a persuasive text or something else, and the structure of the text, the process of working somebody through understanding that text in its sequential order. It can be an informative text, it can be a narrative structure, there's a certain structure, so that's the coherence of a text. And I actually did not study that aspect, because hopefully the speaker has a coherent text, and the interpreter is just following along what the speaker's goals might be. But I was interested in the intertextual work. How does each sentence tie to the next sentence? So Halliday and Hassan's model covers cohesion in the following way. They talk about the cohesion within a text based on 5 different ways of tying the text together: reference, substitution, ellipsis, conjunction, and lexical cohesion. So repeating the same words. But I've actually focused my research solely on conjunction. So what I focused on was the cohesion between phrases or sentences rather than intersentential. Now, when we talk about reference, we might set up a pronoun for a gentleman named Bob. And we're talking about Bob, we're talking about him going to school, taking a course, passing a class, whatever it might be, and I go back to that pronoun space. And you all understand that I'm talking about Bob. That is a way of creating cohesion within a text. Endophoric means within the text. So as I'm talking about Bob, I'm using that pronoun space. You all understand that I am talking about Bob. We're still within the same text. But now if I've pointed out a different pronoun and I'm talking about the green chair in front of me, that's actually not part of the text. What that is part of the situation. So it's exophoric versus endophoric. And this is Halliday and Hassan's model that I'm drawing from. English has a number of conjunctive devices that help to tie sentences together. And it's fanboys is how we remember it. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. So those are powerful coordinating conjunctive devices that English makes use of. And within the field of conjunctive devices are found discourse markers. So how you begin your text and move on and end it. So I know here in the States people sign discourse a slightly different way than I do, but this is the sign that I use for discourse. It's showing the beginning and the end of a text, and it has markers that take you throughout that text. And of course they have various purposes. Here are some of the conjunctive devices that have been found in American Sign Language. I'm sure you know many of them or have seen them. There are scholarly articles written about them, and so I just excerpted these and to cite them here. But there were many that I found in my study that were not here, so I think we should probably add to the list of conjunctive devices. Okay. Again, you're probably familiar with the discourse markers of American Sign Language, as you can see here up on the slide. So remember I told you that my study consisted of 5 expert interpreters and 7 novice interpreters. I wanted to compare their attempts or targets of inputting cohesion into a text. If there were cohesive moments that were missing in a text, I wanted to understand how the interpreters tried to rectify that. And I wanted a deaf audience to see those interpretations and judge it on its ASL fluency. I wanted to see if there was in fact a relationship between the use of conjunctive devices or cohesive devices and the perceived fluency in ASL, according to the deaf experts that I worked with. So the source text was just an invented narrative talking about someone's entree into the deaf world. It was something that I felt interpreters were very comfortable with because they would have gone through that kind of experience themselves at the journey of deciding to become an interpreter. So it was not a particularly dense or difficult text to work with. Many of the interpreters would be familiar with the story. The pace was on purpose, not too quick. And I told the interpreters to imagine that their audience were monolingual ASL users and to adjust their interpreting style. They didn't actually have an audience, but they were told to imagine. So that's a limitation, that there weren't actually real deaf people in the room, but that's the life of a researcher. One does what one has to do. And then I worked with 3 deaf native signers who were willing to be readers. They graciously agreed to come and work on this project. It was actually done at Gallaudet. They all had a bachelor's degree. It was a mix of gender, and the 3 of them had taught ASL in their career as well as interpreting, I believe. So they were very familiar with the process of interpretation as well as being native users of the language. So I had transcribed a script of this taped performance, and there were 100 sentences, and if there were omissions, we coded it in a certain way. And of the whole entire team, they basically didn't have statistically significant differences in how they handled the text. There were no struggles, there were no significant omissions in terms of how many signs they performed per minute. Again, no significant difference. So they had some lexical differences in the signs they might have used, but they were not significantly different. Remember the model of Halliday and Hassan talked about the third person reference, which will add cohesion to a text. So if I say I'm going to school, and I've pointed to myself, you understand I'm speaking in first person. But I can actually say go to school without the pronoun I in that sentence, because in the context it's understood. So it's a pronoun drop ability. And if I'm talking about a third person like Bob going to school, taking courses, getting an award, whatever it might be, I'm referring back to that token space. And if I'm talking to somebody else, I'm indicating who I'm talking to by my eye gaze. So I'm again dropping that pronoun. But the third person pronoun is not dropped. In fact, it's often referred to anaphorically as a cohesive device. And there was no difference among the novice and experienced interpreters in how they used that third person reference. But there was one significant difference, which was the use of conjunctive devices and discourse markers. People who have studied interpreters have done so by looking at their target text, which they have felt was not fair, because an interpretation is different than somebody's everyday language. But the deaf raters were able to judge those interpreters on their fluency or lack thereof. Other researchers have determined a certain fluency rating based on target text, so I'm not the only one who has done that. That is something that is seen in the literature before, that interpreters working off of English into ASL can still be judged on their ASL fluency by those who are capable of doing that judging. So the names in red, if you can see, those are the expert interpreters, and the lower list are the novice interpreters. So the English narrative had 23 instances of conjunctive devices. The novice interpreters might have added, for example, a but that wasn't said in the English text, or giving a discourse marker, and then what happened was some kind of but it was in the end about the same as the original source text in terms of conjunctive devices. And yet the experts almost doubled their use of conjunctive devices compared to the original source text. I thought that was a very interesting finding. So for me, it felt like something we had a clear sense we've got to teach novice interpreters to include more conjunctive devices in their work. So the 3 deaf raters rated the 12 interpreters on a scale from 1 to 6. And the experts traditionally were coming out with 4s and 5s, whereas the novice interpreters were given scores of 2s and 3s. And the more conjunctive devices they had, the higher ASL fluency rating they received from the deaf raters. As conjunctive devices and discourse markers increase in the interpreted text, the perceived fluency as well increases. So you can see in the column on the right the back translation. Adam's back translation is sort of sentence by sentence. That was a novice interpretation. And then the expert interpretation, you can see more conjunctive devices. What you see in bold are the conjunctive devices that are not yet been found in the literature, and I think we ought to add them to our repertoire. And they showed up all throughout the texts performed by the expert interpreters. And there were differences between those who were native language users and those who learned this language later in life. The deaf raters said they wanted to see some of these cohesive devices more often, and they did, which is an interesting finding as well. And that concludes my presentation scene. Are there questions, comments, disagreements at this time? I've been asked to go back one slide. Is this the slide you wanted to see? Yes. This one? Okay. Any questions? Comments? Surprising findings or puzzled reactions? Yes, right here in front. You said the deaf raters wanted to see more discourse markers and more conjunctive devices. And the ones who had just graduated from an IATP, I'm just wondering, I guess, how we can add those particular devices, discourse markers, into our ITP education. Thank you for your question. Well, after doing the work, I asked them to do a back translation. So I actually videotaped them watching their interpretation. I asked them about their feelings. I asked them, what they had seen, and they were able to identify for themselves the omissions that were there. So either they discovered on their own, or you can tell them. Obviously, it's better if they discover it on their own, because that has more staying power, and then that's something that can be corrected. Obviously, it can be taught explicitly and shown explicitly in programs. I think actually we are out of time, so I guess we'll turn it over to the next speaker. Thank you.
All right. Everybody, if I could have your attention, please. Are we ready? I'll allow a moment to get more people's attention. Great. Thank you for your help. Welcome back. Some of you were here for the first session. Some of you have just joined us. If you need a seat and don't see one readily available, there are a few down in front, so please do make your way around the room so that you don't have to stand during the next talk. My name is Joy Marks. I'm the moderator for the morning session. If anyone needs to listen to the interpretation, we have FM systems. We have headsets available at the table to my left, so please do pick that up if you need it. At the end of the talk, we will have a Q&A portion. Please do come to the front of the room to ask your question, whether you're going to sign it or use AS or speak it. For the next talk, we have 2 presenters listed, but only one will be representing the work that was done. Lisa Barrick was not able to be here today, although she was key in conducting this work. The person we have with us today is Roberto Santiago. Roberto?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming. It's funny seeing Lisa's name up here. We are both full-time parents, not together, separately. Just to be clear there. The minute that came off my hands, I realized there might be some confusion. But I was able to find someone to take care of my children today. Lisa was not, and she's out of the area and was unable to make it here today. So I'm here to present on our behalf. A lot of people have told me to say hi to her, thinking that she would be here. I'm unfortunately not able to do so. So today I'll be talking about idioms, which I think is a very interesting topic. We'll see if you agree with me at the end. I think the first question to address is, why study idioms to begin with, and what's going on up there? Much better. So first, idioms are found throughout many languages. If you are proficient at using idioms, that shows that you are proficient in the language. Idioms are a great way of showing that you have command of that language.